My name is James, and what I'm about to share is something I never imagined experiencing in my own marriage. You know how people say trust is the foundation of a relationship? Well, let's just say I learned the hard way what happens when that trust is put to the test. I always believed my wife and I were on the same page about everything. Our goals, our future, even the home we lived in. But one day, I stumbled upon something that completely shattered that belief. I took a different approach and taught her a lesson that neither of us would ever forget, but not in the way you might expect. So, buckle up, because this is a story about what happens when you discover that the person you love may not have been as honest as you thought. If you had asked me a month ago, I would have told you that my wife, Linda, and I had a strong, happy marriage. We had been together for 5 years, and like any couple, we had our ups and downs. But overall, things were good. Nothing about our life seemed unusual or out of place. We lived in a beautiful 2-story house. Not overly luxurious, but cozy enough to feel like home. From the very beginning, I believed we were renting from some unknown landlord. Just another ordinary part of life. Linda always handled the payments, and I never thought twice about it. It made sense. She was better with finances, and I trusted her completely. Every month, like clockwork, I would transfer the rent money to her, and she would take care of the rest. It never crossed my mind to question it because, in my mind, it was just a shared responsibility, like buying groceries or paying utility bills. That's how marriage works, right? You divide expenses, support each other, and keep life running smoothly. At least, that's what I thought. One evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through paperwork, bills, bank statements, insurance documents, all the boring responsibilities of adulthood. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just trying to get organized. That's when I came across a folder I didn't recognize. Curious, I opened it. Right there, staring back at me, was an official-looking document with our home's address on it. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I saw the name. It wasn't some random landlord's name printed on the deed. It was Linda's. For a moment, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. It had to be a mistake. But the more I looked, the less sense it made. I started flipping through the folder, scanning every page, and that's when I found bank statements. Statements showing that every rent payment I had made over the years had been going directly into an account linked to Linda. And just like that, the truth hit me like a truck. Linda wasn't just my wife. She was my landlord. I sat there, gripping the paper so tightly that my hands trembled. The woman I trusted with everything had been deceiving me for years. She had been collecting every dollar, watching me withdraw money from our shared income, and funneling it into her separate account. And she never said a word. It wasn't even about the money. If she had told me from the start that she owned the house, I wouldn't have cared. We could have figured something out like a normal couple. But that was the problem. She chose to keep me in the dark. She watched me sign those rent checks and never once said, "James, you don't need to pay this. The house is already ours." No. Instead, she let me believe we were just tenants, playing along as if she was just as unaware as I was. That realization hit me harder than any argument we had ever had. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a conscious decision she had made to hide the truth from me. And if she could lie about something this big, what else had she been lying about? At that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to explode, yell, or throw things. That's not how you handle betrayal. If she wanted to play this game, I was going to change the rules. That night, I didn't say a word to Linda. I ate dinner with her, listened to her talk about her day, and nodded at the right moments, all while knowing that tomorrow morning, I was going straight to a lawyer. Because if she thought she could get away with this, she was wrong. I wasn't going to be a fool any longer. The next day, I walked into a law office and laid everything out on the table. The lawyer listened, nodding as he skimmed through the documents I had brought. When he finally looked up at me, his face didn't hold any surprise. He had seen cases like this before. "You have a case," he said plainly. "Since we lived in a community property state, I had a legal right to claim part of the house. It didn't matter that she had kept it under her name. I had been contributing financially, which made a marital asset. Hearing that felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. Legally, she had misled me in a way that could be considered financial fraud within our marriage. The lawyer explained that I could sue her, and that if I pursued it, I had a strong chance of gaining a legal claim over property. Then, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. He pointed out that my rent payments had been used to renovate the house. New kitchen countertops, bathroom upgrades, even a fancy backyard patio we had installed last summer. My money had directly increased the property's value, without me knowing that the investment was only benefiting her. That meant I could file for an ownership adjustment. I sat there, absorbing it all, and suddenly, everything became clear. Linda had made a calculated decision to keep me in the dark while reaping the benefits of my money. But now, the tables had turned. She had set the game up in her favor, but she forgot one thing. I could play smart, too. I didn't hesitate. I gave the lawyer the go-ahead to move forward with legal action. If Linda wanted to keep secrets, she was about to deal with the fallout. I'll never forget the look on her face when she opened that envelope. It was around 6 p.m., right after she got home from work. I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through my phone, but in reality, I was watching her closely. She kicked off her shoes, let out a tired sigh, and grabbed a pile of mail from the counter. Bills, a grocery store coupon, and then she saw it. A crisp, official-looking envelope with her name on it. She tore it open casually, probably expecting some boring paperwork. But the second her eyes landed on the first few lines, her entire expression shifted. Confusion flickered across her face as she scanned the page repeatedly, like she was trying to convince herself she was misreading it. She blinked rapidly as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. "James, what is this?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked up at me, gripping the papers so tightly her hands trembled. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my face unreadable. "Exactly what it says, Linda," I replied. "A fraud complaint, an ownership adjustment, legal action." She stumbled back, pressing her palm against the kitchen counter as if she needed support. Her eyes glistened with tears. No. "James, you didn't," she choked out. But I had. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she took a shaky step toward me, her voice breaking. "Please, James, don't do this. Don't take it to court. Let's just talk about it. Please." She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She was terrified. And that only fueled my frustration, because I wanted her to learn a lesson she wouldn't forget any time soon. I folded my arms and exhaled sharply. "Why, Linda? Why did you lie to me?" She wiped her face with her sleeve, trying to steady herself. She didn't respond right away, just shook her head, her breath catching in her throat. That's when I realized she wasn't just upset about the lawsuit. She was about to tell me something I hadn't expected. She pulled out a chair and sat down across from me, her hands trembling as she set the papers on the table. She stared at them for a few seconds before finally speaking. "I never meant to hurt you," she murmured. "I swear, James, I never did." I didn't say a word. I just waited. If she had an explanation, I wanted to hear it. And if it was just another excuse, I needed to know how far she'd go to defend herself. She swallowed hard. "I inherited the house before we got married. It was my mom's place, and when she passed away, she left it to me. It was mine, James, something that belonged only to me. So, why didn't you tell me?" I asked. She let out a shaky breath, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Because I wanted to protect myself." I frowned. "Protect yourself? From me?" Her head shot up, and she shook it quickly. "No, not from you. Just from the unknown, from the what-ifs. I grew up watching my mom struggle after my dad left. She had no backup, no savings, nothing to fall back on. She thought their marriage would last forever, and when it didn't, she was left with nothing. I promised myself that if I ever got married, I would never put myself in that position." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "So you made me believe we were renting? Let me pay you rent? Made me think we were in this together when, in reality, you were just keeping an escape plan, just in case?" Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head again. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't about not trusting you. I didn't know how to tell you. without it sounding wrong. At first, I told myself it didn't matter because we were splitting expenses like any other couple. And then, as time passed, I got scared. What if you got angry? What if it changed the way you saw me? A part of me understood. Fear makes people do stupid things. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the reality. She had built our marriage on a lie. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she wanted control. So what now? I asked, do you expect me to just forget about it? Pretend it never happened? She wiped her eyes, her voice trembling. No, I don't expect anything. I just want to fix this. I don't want to lose you, James. Please. I stared at her for a long time. The woman sitting across from me wasn't some heartless schemer. She was my wife. And now, she was breaking under the weight of her own choices. But I also knew that a marriage built on secrecy and hidden agendas could never survive. The question was, where do we go from here? I took my time, weighing my anger against the reality of the situation. Was I hurt? Absolutely. Did I feel betrayed? Without a doubt. But was this worth destroying our marriage over? Probably not. She had made a selfish choice, believing she was protecting herself. And, truthfully, I wasn't blameless either. I had blindly trusted her with everything related to the house, never questioning anything. Maybe that was my mistake, too. After careful thought, I made my decision. I told her I would withdraw the lawsuit. But this wasn't something we could just brush under the rug. There had to be changes. I made it clear that this wasn't just about the house. It was about trust, about how we handled things as a couple. Marriage isn't a business deal where one person holds all the power. It's not about control or keeping a safety net just in case. If you're in, you're all in. Linda had put herself first when she should have been thinking about us. That had to change. I told her straight. There's no security in marriage without trust. If she truly wanted to protect our future, we needed to do it together, as partners, not opponents playing financial mind games. This time, she listened, and when she spoke, she didn't try to justify her actions. She didn't make excuses. She owned it. She apologized, not just for lying, but for what her lie had done to our marriage. She admitted she was wrong and promised never to keep financial secrets from me again. That's when we had the conversation we should have had years ago. We laid everything out, our savings, our investments, our long-term goals. No more guessing, no more pretending, and most importantly, no more rent. From that day forward, the house became our home, not just something I unknowingly paid into. We agreed that from now on, all financial decisions, big or small, would be made together. No more hidden accounts. No more unspoken agreements. We set up a shared financial plan where we both had full transparency. But here's the thing. After everything that happened, after the legal action, after the difficult conversations, I realized something important. Yeah, I taught her a lesson. But honestly, I learned one, too. Marriage isn't about keeping secrets, no matter how good you think your reasons are. It's not about trying to outsmart each other or setting up escape plans behind your partner's back. It's about honesty, communication, and truly being a team. The moment you start treating marriage like a game where only one person wins, you both lose. By the end of it, the tension between us finally cracked. We even laughed at how ridiculous it all was. How something so simple, something that could have been solved with an honest conversation, had nearly turned into a legal battle. It wasn't perfect. Trust wouldn't be rebuilt overnight. But we were willing to fix what was broken, and that was what truly mattered.